Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to join Enrique with his documentary, You Can't See It From Here. Or in Spanish,
No se ve desde acá.
Let's take a look at the clip. Welcome back. Well, you've not been here, but you've had a film here before with Alpha King, so it's so nice to meet you in person.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're really excited.
Well, thank you firstly for traveling all the way from the East Coast to be here. Really super special. It was so vibrant to have your film last night. I love your film. I've got so many questions, but for those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis.
Sure, yeah. The film is a spatial exploration of contemporary Miami through the lens of the immigrant community and the different journeys that people take to land here. And we kind of try to do something a bit playful with use of archive and other elements to sort of tell it from a different perspective.
Yeah. As I said off camera, but your vision for this documentary was, I mean, you've got such an amazing imagination, and this documentary was really, really powerful because you just touched on so many different experiences and elements of the immigrant experience, obviously, in this case, set in your wonderful country of Colombia. Tell us a little bit about where that moment was for you, where you had this idea and how you wanted to turn this into a documentary, and the way that you decided to portray it as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think everything that I do starts with a very long research process, and this actually started from me learning about Venezuelan immigrants coming into Colombia. And there was a while in history, in time, where and not too far ago, where a lot of children, especially that would be born in Colombia, would be stateless, essentially. So by law, they didn't have access to an ID, to healthcare, and things like that. And so I started really getting embedded into the complexities of the immigration system, but also the bureaucracy that exists in those contexts.
Yeah.
And I was doing my MFA at Stanford, where we did Alpha Kings also, and wanted to say kind of, or think about how I can translate some of those immigration questions that I had and some of the research that I had done to the US.
Yeah.
And so started talking to a few people. I had been to Miami when I was a kid, but not really so much as an adult.
Yeah.
And when I went there, I found this world of contradiction and sort of this excess of wealth and how people use space and construction and sort of this appetite for new buildings and new, the euphoria of capitalism in America contrasted to sort of some of the issues that we're dealing with and how we reappropriate space, essentially, and who is it for? Yeah. And so that's kind of how the idea was born, essentially.
And you covered so many different areas, that you've just mentioned. That was fascinating to me because, goodness me, like I am petrified of immigration as a person that came from another country, because it's such a hard experience. But it's even worse when you're coming south of the United States. It's much worse. They make it much harder. It's brutal, and it's crazy what they put you through. Whether you're coming here legally or not, it's never an easy journey. But you really also made me laugh too, because there's the capitalism and kind of what the propaganda they sell you on. It's like, really, you live here and it's like, yeah, I don't know who you're kidding, but it's not all how it looks like it's going to be. Obviously, there's a lot. How did you go about creating the areas you wanted to kind of cover? Because it's very vast, and there's a lot in the context of your story. So how do you kind of lay that out as a documentary?
It was really hard.
Yeah.
It's probably the hardest edit that I've done, because it, like you said, we don't follow really one character or a family who is immigrating. It's really more about how to tell this story and how to evoke sort of feelings in people through these spaces, and maybe spaces also that we normally don't associate so much with the immigrant experience, you know, like storage houses, the port of Miami, and how do those things make us think about the things that we read in the news, and the different kinds of immigration also, which we see in the film, you know, people who are crossing the border, but also people who are making large investments and who are able to come through a different path in a different way. And I think making those, you know, complexities in those associations just took a lot of time, and trying things out and changing the order of the sequences, you know, back and forth, and trying to kind of marry the project together. So it wasn't an easy experience, and really hard.
I mean, goodness me. How did you go about connecting with your subjects? I know you had obviously very many different people, but how was that experience for you?
It was beautiful, actually. And I did work with a number of nonprofit organizations in the area, like San Vicente and a couple of people, and most of which are immigrant-led and run. And people who are there to help welcome new immigrants and new families. They give them clothes, they give them shelter, they give them sort of their basic needs. And through them, and sort of understanding their work and being present for, you know, several days, became really close to them. And through that, and sort of the immigrants that would come through those spaces, I started forming those relationships. And I think that the harder part was sort of the real estate agent, right? And some of these other characters that are very different from, you know, the usual immigrant community that I tried to portray in the film. Those characters were more difficult to access, right? Because not everyone wants to showcase their work that way, right, on film. And I think Alexandra, who is in the film, the real estate agent that you see presenting,
I love her.
The project, you know, she was really open and really gave us the space to really talk to her and also understand what she's about and her perspective.
Yeah, that was a very intriguing conversation, actually. It was really quite amazing. Now, obviously, as you know, when you're making these things, you never quite know. It's all really about how things get shaped in the edit and all the things that take place in the post-production. It's a long process as a documentary filmmaker. But like, was there any parts that on this journey that you went on that surprised you, or that you found out or learned more than maybe you didn't know?
Yeah, I mean, to an earlier point that you made, this propaganda sort of sensibility of America, I kind of knew what we all consume, and I think in a point in time now where we see that more than ever in the news, this really extreme sense of American individualism, and really what that does and what that means, and the euphoria sort of created around that. Looking at some of the archives from, you know, we started looking at things from the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, how rich it is, how much there is of it, and sort of diving into some crazy stuff that like I never thought, like, why would they do some of that stuff, you know?
Right, absolutely.
And some stuff that is not even in the film. Like, we had clips of women dancing around laundromats and like selling air conditioners, and
I know,
you know, this idea of the American dream, which I think the film tries to, you know, dismantle, or like, right?
I love how you did that. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, it's funny as an immigrant to anyone, whether you're first, second generation, they've sold you on this idea, you know,
Exactly.
And you know, there's no country that really sells you an idea like the United States, or, you know, kind of is run like a business, you know, as well, which is also fascinating too. what has the reaction been for you in sharing this film? It was amazing to have it at this vibrant film festival last night, but I'm sure you've had a lot of people coming up to you with like many questions and thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, people. It's funny because although it's a film that touches upon a really important subject matter and some, like it affects people in different ways, depending on their individual experience. And one thing that I noticed last night, every screening is different, but the humor that's in the film, there are moments where it's
you got a good sense of humor there as well.
Yeah, but it's funny because it's like, I think when you're making it, like my intention with this project was never that, right? Of like the humorous aspects and seeing sort of where people find the lightness in all of this, and, right, and try to relate to some of the maybe more surreal or crazy moments that we see. That's always surprising because I never expect, or know how people are going to react.
Well, I even found it in the way of just when they're being asked the questions of like when you're going for your citizenship, and the questions they ask, like most of 99.9% of Americans don't know, but they ask these crazy questions like you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something, and it's like, it's like, what is it, a game show? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
or quizzing people.
Yeah,
like that scene at the end where
the quizzing, the quizzing,
it's like, the questions and like,
does that make you a better person? Like,
exactly.
Yeah. No, I think I loved all the areas that you touched on because the immigrant experience is such a unique experience for every individual family, let alone country and culture. And I thought you captured it so well. And so, the fact you summarized all of the conditions that arise with this, I'm just curious for you, with your audience, what did you want people to take from your film?
I mean, it's up to them, really.
Yeah.
I feel like I tried to open questions and interrogate certain things, and it was very important for me also, and for my team, Faye, who worked on the film too, my producer, to really not have a strong political stance or feel that we were making people feel a certain way or drive the narrative towards a specific political ideation. Of course, I think there are strong sentiments about how I feel about this idea of America, obviously, right? And how ridiculous it can be, and how absurd, right? And I think what I most want people to see is sort of those contradictions in the way that we live.
Yeah. Oh.
Right? Like some of these statistics are not in the film because it's really not about that, but I do feel like the idea that we have, up to 3 million pending cases, asylum cases at the border, and the numbers are just increasing, right? And then we see how space is being built in cities like Miami, but also LA and New York, and the way that we sort of welcome the immigrant community in such vast different ways, depending on how much money they have, what they're able to offer, right? This idea of how to categorize human beings is something that I feel I can't really understand.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. So, my goodness, this is like one of those, I want to be in like 2-hour podcast going really into the depths of all of this, because it's really, this is people's lives, essentially. I mean, you really were great in just kind of, really summarizing all these different topics, but these are people's lives, and and it's a lot on family, it's a lot on people, and it's a lot of stress that comes with this process, and you did really fantastic. What is next for you? What are you doing next?
We are actually, based off of this project, I got really interested in high-tech surveillance at the border, and the use of AI, for example, and sort of these new cameras, new methodologies of how they're essentially tracking people that cross the border, and this idea of how far do we go, for invasion of privacy, and what does that mean, for individuals who are escaping their realities, escaping their countries for a better life, and so kind of the use of technology in some of that border control and border patrol work. So we've been developing some ideas around that and doing a lot of research on high-tech surveillance.
Wow.
And then we're working also with Faye on a feature based of Alpha Kings.
Oh, great.
Which is a film that we had here last year. Yeah.
Last year, fantastic. Oh my goodness. Well, it's so nice to finally have you here with us, and honestly, thank you to all your crew and everyone that took part in the film as well, because it's a really important subject, and you really, showed the humanized it, but also important areas that we need to be talking about in the United States and other countries too. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Enrique, everybody.